Welcome back, everyone. My name, of course, is DM Rhino, and we are reading D&D horror stories from Reddit. And we're continuing with the horror story, The DM Destroys Campaigns and Friendships, Part 3, by Living AD2272. Remember, if you like this video, hit like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the wonderful things. Leave a comment if you want, completely fine. And we'll begin, of course, by just giving everyone like a bit of a trigger warning for self-harm, misogyny, suicide, and bigotry, of course. And there are like the DM breaks promises and destroys friendships and takes no responsibility for his actions. And there's a little clarification over here. Also, there's a bit of an edit for contents before we begin. Part 3 of what turned out to be a very long story. I'll start by saying I'm on a throwaway account since I think some of the others involved use Reddit. I was a huge pushover at the start of the story, but I've grown quite a lot. The characters in the story, of course, is Living AD, me, Joe the DM, Matt, or their ex and former player, and Tim, a former player. They've used fake names for autonomy, but yes, this is what they've done. But yeah, let's have a look at part 3. This is the last part, and it looks like quite a long part, so I'll try to break this up as much as I can, and I'll be paraphrasing just because sometimes the way this is written, it can be a bit too much in the weeds. So let's have a look and begin with the first paragraph. Um, a couple of months ago, back in August, I had traveled to visit Joe and Tim, where they lived. It was a great time. I thought we all had fun. While on vacation, I received a message from Matt. Some backstory. Matt and I had dated for a few months between 2023 and 2024. It ended with them to be with us breaking up, ended with them breaking up. Oh, them breaking up with me, which sent me into a deep spiral. I went to therapy for it, but that even took a year for me to heal uh, from that failed relationship and a variety of other things I won't mention here. I'm by no means perfect, but I'm in a much better place than I have been. But anyway, Matt messaged me with an explanation on why they kept ghosting me after we had gone back to being friends. Out of decency, I won't say anything here, but it was dark and reflective of the behavior of their transformer character, perhaps against my better judgment. I allowed them back into my life, and things were fine for a bit. We were getting along, and Joe had even invited Matt to test his game, and even help some of us, and even help with some of the art for it. Okay, so even help with the art for it. Things were looking up. Okay, so yeah, that's always a bad thing, especially if, you know, relationships are always tricky. And whether you have a good relationship or a bad relationship, you have to protect your space. And if you decide to let someone back into your life, as I said, they've gone to therapy and stuff like that. I'm not judging. Um, and they were young, but to try and you got to be very aware of letting people back into your personal space after they have hurt you. It's something that I've also learned. Um, let's have a look at paragraph 2. And now we come to a couple of weeks before this post. Joe made an announcement that he was canceling all 4 role-playing games. He said it was for his mental health of a DM and the players, and so he could better focus on his project. He said he had hoped we all remain friends and that there weren't any hard feelings. I messaged I messaged him to let him know that I respect and understand his decision to end RPs, but that I was deeply hurt by his breaking my trust. Maybe you're thinking, oh, canceling D&D was such a silly thing to get upset about. And you're probably right. But it's not the cancellation of those games that hurt me, it was the 2.5 years of broken promises. I'm not the type to take promises lightly, especially when they were clearly meant to be serious. After this, I had a 3 day long spiral. My body had a physical reaction to the realization that my trust had been broken by yet another person. And I considered a friend. Maybe this seems dramatic to you, but it was very real to me. Joe wasn't aware of this. In those days, he decided to make a brand new Discord server separate from the ones he'd made me a month ago for his project. I asked him why he would need to make a whole new server, since the one we had was perfectly fine. There were only a handful of channels in it. The reasoning was that you can't change the type of channel it is once it's made. I can't change the text server to a voice channel, and that he'd have to delete them anyway. He assured me that this would be the last server, since I told him we were tired of hopping to different servers for this project. There had already been 5, and we'd be moved to another point at this point. This new server had several folders, each with 6 channels in them. Each folder was for a different chapter of the project, and each channel was easily organized into assets. Although I'll be honest, looking at it made my head spin. By now, my faith in this project was shot. I'd sat through countless iterations and changes, and not one bit of real project. 1 step forward, 3 steps back. Yeah, it definitely sounds like the DM had some sort of mental illness. Also, as I said, in the previous video, it's better to finish something than to make it perfect. Just finish it first. You can always work on something. You can always make something better once it is finished. But to continuously work on this and make it and try and improve it, it sounds like this is like it's like the Gordian knot. You're not gonna finish it because you don't want to finish it. You're addicted to the changes that you have made and that are making. But let's have a look at the third, third paragraph. Yeah, there's a lot of paragraphs here. So, my frustration grew by day, and at some point, I just stopped talking to anyone. Joe decided to type out a lengthy farewell post in the project server, saying he would be logging off of Discord and deleting the app, and that he wouldn't be back until he had something to show for it. He came back 6 hours later, 100% out of his slump, with what to show? A couple of Instagram accounts that he claimed that he'd been writing all evening. I chatted with Matt about how his behavior wasn't normal and how it felt almost manic. Yeah, this is where, of course, they disagreed. Yeah, it sounds like Joe definitely has a mental health issue. Um, Everyone has the burst of inspiration, but this just felt off. Then the next day, Joe posted on his server. In short, I know this project has been controversial since the cancellation of some of the RPs. So please DM me your honest answer on if you want to continue participating in this project. To me, this seemed like him fishing for pity and compliments, and that was just setting himself up to be upset. So that was it for me. I gave him honest thoughts. I let Joe know that he broke my trust completely, that I had no faith in his project whatsoever that will ever be finished, that he was full of contradictions, and that his constant jumping around of campaigns and servers and asking me 3 times a week if he could break up with his digital boyfriend felt indicative of a deeper issue with commitment. I made it clear that I didn't mean any of this as a personal attack or with any malice. I was generally saying this because I love him as a friend, and that I didn't want this to become a forever project for him because I know how draining those can be. His response to take everything as a personal his response was to take everything as a personal attack and tell me I was wrong about everything. How he didn't need a fan base and how he only wanted to share his game with his closest and loved ones, even though a couple of weeks before this, he'd been asking me about copyright and how to set up social medias to market his game and build a franchise. That project grows with him. I hadn't even seen any real change in this person since we met, nor since the project had grown, and that I'll be done when everything feels right. I'm upset at this point. So I take the advice and give him a while and log off for a bit. I stepped back and I went to de-stress. That evening and the next morning, Joe messaged me 3 times saying he wasn't mad and he wanted to get on a call with some things to clear up, and then proceeded to call me without waiting for me to say yes or no. I didn't pick up because I was in the shower and I decided to give him another day. So then the next day comes and I explain why I hadn't answered these messages or his call. And that could and that I could call in a couple of days since we'll both be off to work. He agreed. A few hours later, he asked to call me that night. I agreed. Okay, so yeah, so it definitely sounds like uh, this DM is, there's a whole other thing I'm going to get into because it's like 3 other paragraphs here. But from what I can hear, it sounds like this DM was suffering from something, probably mania, probably a mental health illness, something like that, that became very, very bad. Yeah, so it's definitely he was taking it out on his players. But let's have a look at the next paragraph because there's a lot on this. Yeah. He was gonna call the Joe was gonna call the Reddit user that night. So it says here, nighttime. I go sit in my car because I don't want the rest of the house hearing my conversation. Joe explains to me that he felt that I'd taken a personal jab at him, that I assumed things about him that weren't true. Not sure how he expected me to know anything about him since he had never told me. All he talked about was how much he hated his coworkers and whatever the new thing he thought up or changed in his project. That I should that I shouldn't be so quick calling him out on not addressing the problematic players' behavior. Um, they were one of those players when all he when all he's ever said to me was how much he liked my characters and that I was basically carrying the role plays. And as he's never done anything about toxic players in any way that mattered. Oh, the way that this is written is kind of, oh, there's a couple of spelling mistakes here. um let's see, I have a look here. I'm gonna just make sure I get highlight this so I can read this properly. Yeah, that he's aware of his problems and he's constantly working on them. He didn't like being called out on obvious issues. Big projects like this get restarted all the time. It will get done when it feels right. Has the same energy as uh, the simulator, yeah, the simulator eternal project. I'm not too sure what that is. Um, according to him, for the for the last time, according to him, for the last year or so, he had been getting more and more combative about having more disagreements, which is true. But hear me out. The first disagreement I actually remember was only about a month ago. He's one of those everything happens for a reason types. And I was saying this to me in what felt like a very condescending manner, adding little smiley faces after every sentence. The conversation started with me saying I found a genie. I'd removed all the suffering from the world. It's obviously in game. Joe, on the other hand, believes that necessarily suffering and believes that if no one suffered, there would be no motivation to help each other, which I believe to be false. Now, Joel is older than me by a few years, and I felt talked down to considering all of that. So I matched his energy. My response to him was what I ask everyone who has this mindset, which was, so what was me trying to kill myself at 12 a good thing by your logic? He took this as a personal attack and almost ended our friendship. I crawled back, sobbing and apologizing, even though I really shouldn't, it shouldn't have been, even though it shouldn't have been. Yeah. Our second disagreement, I remember happening a little after that. I don't remember the conversation leading up to it, but as I said, that maybe the world, but I would say, yeah, this I have to. They obviously wrote this in a bit of a hurry, so I'm just trying to get this right. But I'd said that maybe the world would be better without certain harmful groups of people, fascists, pedos, abusers, etc. Yes, his response: it's bad karma to wish ill upon others because it's like poisoning your own cup. Once again, I felt like being spoken to like a silly little child who doesn't know how awful the world is yet, or something like that. The funny thing is, Joe is the most toxically positive nihilist you can imagine, which is yet another contradiction. Could I have been nicer with the honesty of he asked for it? No, I hadn't been then, and I wouldn't have been kissing ass or lying. But we talked for about 10 minutes. He didn't let me say anything else and ended our friendship because we were no longer compatible. His parting texts were, I still love you and I hope we can meet up before blocking me and kicking me out of every server we shared. Yeah, I mean, it does sound like Joe is going through also mental health issues and not addressing your mental health issues and not being, what is like they're not being considerate of your feelings, right? There's a lot of things that obviously both of you have gone through, but Joe, it definitely sounds like he has a lot of mental health issues and he's just taken, instead of dealing with them, he's using the D&D. Probably read that, like, look, D&D is great for helping people with mental health issues. It's one of the best forms of therapy. It's also one of the cheapest forms of therapy because you can play with a group. But you have to be a very mature DM to understand that. You have to have a lot of things about you to know this. And that's why you ask your players, what are they comfortable with? What are they not comfortable with? Etc. Right? And it sounds like this DM was trying to use his players in his game as his own form of therapy. But if your only perspective is of yourself, your perspective is flawed. You need an objective opinion. You need someone else to look at you and say, hey, this behavior is not right. And if that is one of your players, you've got to take a step back and be like, hey, yeah, maybe it's not right. But there are a couple of more chapters over here. This is the last paragraph, I should say. So let's read the last paragraph. Yeah. After this fallout, I reached out to Matt, and they're a centralist. They can see both sides of the situation, but in this way, they, but in this, but in this way that they just don't want anyone to be upset or actually making points or taking sides. They're the type to try and make everyone happy so no one gets mad at them. I let Matt know that our friendship is over now too, since I can't be friends with someone who continually associates with a person that hurt me or broke my trust. I tried to reach out to Tim, but he was MIA, so I left him a goodbye message as well. I don't know what came of him or why he stopped talking to me. I just don't know if I ever will. So, what now? Well, this whole situation turned me off of tabletop RPGs, likely forever. I have no wish to play or DM, and I want to put this game behind me. Joe had offered to become roommates a while back, but that's not happening. Probably for the best. If he reacts like this to criticism he asked for, heaven knows what it will be like to live with. He and Matt will likely end up living together, though, considering how he had gone out on a limb for Matt by begging Joe to help him get a job, and now and to let him move in with us, with us. Okay, so they're obviously to get out of a bad home situation. The pair of them will likely live in an echo chamber of misery and circle jerk another while eventually improving themselves with me as their villain. As for me, I'm moving on. I'm working on becoming a teacher, writing a novel, and growing as a person. I'm saving to move to my own place in a couple of years, and I've been putting myself out in my community and making new friends. For years, I've put all my energy into people that don't appreciate or don't deserve it, nor did they deserve me. And now I think I'm free. Thanks for reading the story. If you made it this far, you're a champ. I'm not asking anyone to take sides on this. I wanted to share the story, particularly because typing things is almost like a physical outlet, and getting things out of my head and because maybe reading this can help someone in a similar situation. I think I can finally be at peace. Oh, well, that's good for you. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds, look, I feel very sorry for you because it sounds like it was a really bad situation. And, I do hope that you get into tabletop RPGs. And I hope you do find a really good DM to DM with, or play with, because, that would ruin a lot of players. I don't think you're over reacting in that situation. If you make it perfectly clear to your DM, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, this is what happens. Um, and they should be considerate of you because you all want to tell a story together. And, I'm glad that you got out of that toxic situation, because it sounds like it was very, very toxic for everyone in. And I would, yeah, I'm glad that you are moving forward with your. But yeah, if you like this video, remember to leave a comment, ring the bell notification, all that stuff. This was the part 3. DM destroys the campaign and friendships. Yeah, it was kind of a long one, and I did have to paraphrase a couple of times, because some of the times they I think when they were writing, there was a bit of spelling error coming on, and when I was reading it, it just became like a bit confusing for me. So yeah, I apologize if it became a bit confusing. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be back tomorrow with another story. Until then, have a great day, everyone. I'll see you all tomorrow. Cheers.